So I've been doing some thinking and I've really broken down in my mind who's not just greater, but who is better between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. Now, obviously, after Anthony Joshua's statement victory, second round KO against Francis Ngannou, this question has been getting brought up, not necessarily too much in the media or even by fans, but I know for sure that a lot of people have been thinking about this topic, specifically due to the fact that Ngannou is a common opponent between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down why I actually believe that Anthony Joshua is a better fighter than Tyson Fury, and why Anthony Joshua was likely a better fighter than Tyson Fury the entire time. The entire time that we were all picking Tyson Fury to beat AJ in the fight, when there was a strong chance of them taking each other on prior to the virus and all the fights being postponed and all the mandatories getting in the way. Prior to that whole pandemic, many people, including myself, were picking Tyson Fury to defeat Anthony Joshua. And I feel as time has passed, especially as of late, Anthony Joshua was probably always the better fighter and probably would have taken out Tyson Fury in some way. Now I'm going to break down the resumes of both men, and I'm going to break down the performances of them. And hopefully by the time this video is over, if you don't at least agree with my breakdown, you can at least see where I'm coming from. So let's begin. I want to begin around... I'm going to start for AJ. I'm going to start around the Vladimir Klitschko fight because I feel that's when AJ really first tested himself. If you look at prior to the Klitschko fight, the Molina, Brazil, Charles Martin, Dillian White, none of those were legacy fights. They were good fights for AJ when he was building his name up in a strong contender, but none of those fights meant too much for his career. But after Vladimir Klitschko, and including Vladimir Klitschko, I feel that's when Joshua's career really began. And when it comes to Tyson Fury, I'm probably also going to start around the Klitschko fight because I'm just putting his box rec up now so I can look at it side by side a little bit easier for me. Tyson Fury did have a nice little resume prior to fighting Klitschko as well, the same way AJ did, but none of those fights really meant too much for him, and none of those fights really will be remembered once his career is all said and done. I mean, Christian Hammer, the first two Chisora fights, Steve Cunningham, none of those names really mean too much for Fury's career compared to the recent names that he's taken on and the names he took on after he fought Klitschko the first time. So let's start off right away. Anthony Joshua took on a Vladimir Klitschko that was coming off a defeat to Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury shut Klitschko down, outboxed him, but I want to mention that it was not an impressive outing from Fury. It was impressive due to the fact that he got the upset victory, but Fury did not shine in that fight. He did not make a statement. He didn't embarrass Klitschko. Maybe he embarrassed Klitschko, but it's not the way that he embarrassed Klitschko while looking good himself. If he embarrassed Klitschko, to an extent he embarrassed himself because he fought very poorly in his own right, but he did the bare minimum and it was enough to get the job done. He got the win and did what he had to do. When AJ took on Klitschko, he had a much tougher fight with Klitschko. He got dropped, he got badly hurt, and he had to dig deep, and he eventually stopped Klitschko late. If you look at Klitschko in both fights, it's kind of surprising how Klitschko, coming off a loss in a 2-year layoff or a 1.5 year layoff, looked surprisingly sharper and more awake and more vigilant when he took on Anthony Joshua than he did against Fury. He looked considerably better against AJ, and many people are going to say it's due to the fact that AJ is a worse fighter than Fury, or his style was worse than Fury's. That probably could play a part, but I genuinely think a better version of Klitschko came against Joshua than he did against Tyson Fury. After that, AJ took on Carlos Takam, a Carlos Takam that throughout his entire career, back in the day, not as much now. Even now, he had some good outings before Bacoli beat him. He still has been competing with the elites at heavyweight even as of late. This is a Carlos Takam that gave Joseph Parker a very tough fight, and Alexander Povetkin a very tough fight. Was coming off a couple of wins after the Joseph Parker loss. When he took on Anthony Joshua, AJ dominated him from the start. Many people kind of criticize this outing from AJ. They say he didn't look that great. It was a poor stoppage. It doesn't really matter. AJ was in complete control of the fight. He dropped Takam early, and he technically got him out of there. That's a really good win for Anthony Joshua. He looked very sharp against Takam. It wasn't one of his best performances, but he did what he had to do and looked sharp in the meantime against a good, respectable name. After Klitschko, Tyson Fury, he took on Sefer Seferi and Francisco Payaneta. Neither of those fights mean anything. Those were just comebacks due to him having a 2.5 year layoff. After Carlos Takam, AJ continued off that momentum and unified. He was actually already unified, I apologize, holding the WBA and IBF titles. And I think something people don't really realize is that Anthony Joshua has defended his unified titles many more times than Tyson Fury has. Yes, Fury is unified, or at least he was unified, I apologize. He didn't defend his unified titles at all. He became a WBC champion and has been defending that belt, but he's never defended unified titles. Anthony Joshua has multiple defenses of the unified belts, and it's kind of a shame that he doesn't hold the title now because he's consistently taken on respectable names. It's at a point where he deserves that WBC belt more than Tyson Fury, but that's a whole different topic. Anthony Joshua, right after Takam, continued unified to 3 of the 4 titles against Joseph Parker. Now, Joseph Parker's a win that's obviously aged tremendously. Parker's having a rejuvenation of his career. He's had a great couple months with wins against Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang. He's looked absolutely tremendous. He is on a roll, if we're being honest. He's a top 4 heavyweight, in my opinion, easily now. Joseph Parker's a guy who has been beaten by other names, but Anthony Joshua was the first man to beat him. I feel he beat him pretty convincingly. It wasn't the most entertaining outing from AJ. It wasn't a statement. It was very similar to Fury Klitschko, in my opinion. But he won convincingly, in my opinion, and beat a prime undefeated champion. Now, Tyson Fury, he took on Deontay Wilder for the first time. I believe this was 9 months or 8 months after AJ defeated Joseph Parker. So, not too big of a difference in time. He took on Deontay Wilder for the first time, and I picked Wilder to knock Tyson Fury out in the first fight. Not the next 2 fights. I picked Fury to win the second and third fight. But the first fight, I picked Wilder to win, and he almost did that in the 12th round. But Fury was able to beat the count, and Fury put on a great performance, considering all things considered, and in my opinion, in most people's opinion, deserved the victory that night. So Tyson Fury had a really good outing against Deontay Wilder the first time round. I feel it was actually a legacy fight due to the fact that he got up in that 12th round and did that pretty much coming off the couch, considering he had 2 very easy gimme fights after a 2.5-year layoff and ballooning up in weight. I give Tyson Fury a lot of credit for the first Deontay Wilder fight. However, it's very apparent that AJ has been the more consistent of the 2 guys throughout their careers and is consistently back-to-back-to-back fighting good names, while Tyson Fury is much more sporadic and much more inconsistent in doing so. Now, after he defeated Joseph Parker, he continued that momentum and took on a very dangerous, out of his prime, but very dangerous Alexander Povetkin. Now, people love to talk about how out of his prime Povetkin was when he fought AJ, and this shouldn't really be considered too great of a win for AJ due to the fact that Povetkin was washed and old. But do you guys pay attention to the fact that this was Povetkin on a tear? After he lost to Vladimir Klitschko back in 2013, Povetkin was on a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fight win streak. And that win streak consisted of some good names. Mahmoud Char, who was still a good name at the time, Carlos Takam, Mike Perez, Marius Wach, Johan Duhaupas, Rudenko, Christian Hammer, and David Price. Not amazing names, but a nice, decent resume he built for himself after losing to Klitschko. He was on the tear before fighting AJ. He came off a statement against David Price, who's chinny, but it was a great outing for Povetkin, even though he did get dropped. He looked very good for the most part, and it was a dangerous opponent for AJ. AJ even got buzzed in that fight, but AJ got the job done and stopped Alexander Povetkin. I feel Povetkin was always one of the more underrated guys in the heavyweight division. Even after the AJ fight, he came back, beat Hughie Fury, knocked out Dillian White, and was the first man to beat Dillian White since AJ. Povetkin was still a good name and a very solid opponent for Anthony Joshua, and I feel that's a very underrated win for him. Now, Tyson Fury, he took on Tom Schwarz, who no one wanted to see him fight. Now, what the intention was that he signed with Top Rank. He's going to beat on Tom Schwarz and then fight Wilder right after. That's not what happened. I'm going to get more into detail about that in a moment. But he took on Tom Schwarz, got the dominant TKO win. It doesn't really mean anything, but he got the win and got the job done. Now, when you go back to Anthony Joshua, obviously the Andy Ruiz fight happened 2 weeks prior to Tyson Fury's victory against Tom Schwarz. And the whole first Ruiz fight, I feel, was a great learning experience for AJ, and I feel it actually built him to the fighter he is today. Now, I think it had some negative repercussions on AJ's mental state as a fighter, and it also changed the way he fought, but I feel now, as more time has passed, he's grown from it, and it's actually ended up being a net positive for him. Even though losing's never a net positive, I feel what he learned from that fight benefited him drastically. After the first Ruiz fight, he avenges that defeat against Ruiz, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated performances I've seen a fighter have in a very long time, where it wasn't an entertaining win, but I do think AJ looked really good in the Ruiz rematch. People don't give AJ enough credit for that fight. They put it in the same criteria as they put Fury Klitschko, but I feel AJ actually looked really sharp again in the Ruiz rematch. He looked really good, and he looked like the AJ of old for the most part. Yes, he fought tentatively. He got buzzed, I believe, in the 8th round, and aside from that, had a pretty much spotless performance, but he did what he had to do. He beat the only man that beat him. And keep in mind, Ruiz dropped AJ, I believe, 4 times and basically humiliated him. He humiliated Anthony Joshua. And AJ, to come back from that and to beat Ruiz and to put on a near masterclass type performance, I feel that's truly commendable. Now, Tyson Fury, at this point, when AJ is avenging his only defeat and really proving himself to be a truly commendable name, I mean, that's a really good feat, avenging a defeat, and avenging a defeat where you got beaten up and beaten down. What Tyson Fury did is he took on Otto Wallin. Now, I was one of the few people who actually said Otto Wallin's a good name and an underrated opponent for Tyson Fury. However, even if all that considered, and me saying Wallin's a better name than people realize, and I told people from the start he's much better than Tom Schwarz. People were comparing him to Tom Schwarz. I told everyone he was leagues above Tom Schwarz, and he proved to be that. However, I think he proved to be a little too good as he split Tyson Fury's eye, almost beat him, probably would have beaten him if Tyson Fury wasn't such a big name due to doctor stoppage. Gave Fury a difficult fight, won a good 3-4 rounds in that match, and probably one of the worst performances of Tyson Fury's career. We're going to get into the worst performance of Tyson Fury's career, which I think we all know what I'm going to end up telling you guys. But Otto Wallin gave Fury a very difficult fight, and at this point, you got to realize Anthony Joshua is dominating Ruiz in the rematch. He's stopping Povetkin. He's comfortably beating Joseph Parker and Carlos Takam, while Tyson Fury is getting his eye split open against Otto Wallin, who I understand Otto Wallin is better than we thought he was. I mean, it's very apparent if you look at his resume and what he did. He got some nice wins after the Tyson Fury fight, specifically Murat Gassiev. I mean, aside from that, really, he hasn't beaten anyone. He got the Murat Gassiev win. I thought he was going to lose that fight. He pulled off the upset against a very underrated fighter. But Anthony Joshua took on Wallin after he came off the Gassiev win and completely shut him down. He shut him down and made him quit in 5. It was really throwback AJ, but I feel it was a mature AJ who had that explosiveness and had that aggression, but also knew how to control it and knew how to fight a calculated fight. And he made Wallin quit in 5. The difference between his performance and Tyson Fury's performance speaks volumes. Complete volumes. And if you notice, all of their common opponents, aside from Klitschko, AJ has done considerably better against. And I'm going to get into that a little more later as well. So, back to Tyson Fury, or actually, let's get back to Anthony Joshua, because I sidetracked and talked about what AJ did recently, but I want to talk about what he did in chronological order. After the Andy Ruiz win, he took on Kubrat Pulev. Pulev that's very awkward, not a very easy matchup for anyone stylistically, and he gave AJ problems due to the fact that he necessarily didn't make it hard for AJ, but he made it uncomfortable for AJ. AJ was kind of struggling. He kind of had to find the rhythm in that fight, and he eventually knocked Pulev out, but it wasn't very impressive. It wasn't a big statement, in my opinion. It definitely wasn't. It was nice that he finally got a knockout win, as he hadn't had a knockout win in 2 years prior to that, but he didn't look that great. He dropped him multiple times, but he really struggled to get Pulev out of there. He had him badly hurt in the 3rd and had him hurt throughout the 3rd through 5th round, but it took him all the way till round 9 to get him out of there. So this is clearly PTSD from the Ruiz fight, where AJ still was mentally recovering from what Ruiz did to him in their first bout. And even in the second Ruiz fight, you saw it a little bit. You saw AJ was very tentative and still very nervous, even though I do think he looked really good in that bout. Now, Tyson Fury, this is where Tyson Fury's his ability and how fans view Tyson Fury as a fighter completely changed. Because at this point, I'm going to mention right now, is when Tyson Fury separated himself from the heavyweights, and in my opinion, without doubt, the best performance of Tyson Fury's career, the second Deontay Wilder fight. I was picking Fury to beat Wilder by a split decision. I thought he would do a little better than he did the first time. Wilder would get outboxed, and Fury would win an 8-4, 9-3 fight, but one of the judges would give it to Wilder, and Tyson Fury would win by split decision. That's not what happened at all. He completely took the fight to Wilder like he told everyone he would. He dropped him twice, battered him, beat him so badly that people thought he loaded his gloves. It was that great of a performance from Tyson Fury. And at this point, this is when I officially picked Fury to beat AJ off of how great he looked against Deontay Wilder. And I understand Fury fights at the level of his competition to an extent, but that performance against Wilder was undoubtedly amazing. It was a great performance from Tyson Fury, a complete statement. We all know what he did to Wilder in that second fight. It was absolutely remarkable, and at this point, I put Tyson Fury above Anthony Joshua and would have picked him to beat AJ at this point. Now, as time has passed, obviously, there's some elements to that fight and elements to AJ that has made me change my mind, which I'll get into. So after Pulev, Anthony Joshua got upset by Alexander Usyk. I was picking him to win this fight, and Usyk proved me wrong, and was at one point my number one pound-for-pound fighter. Actually, Usyk was my pound-for-pound number one for a good amount of time. Usyk was my pound-for-pound number one. He was pound-for-pound number one for a good amount of time. Not anymore, but after beating AJ, especially in the rematch as well, the two AJ fights that Usyk had, he was my pound-for-pound number one. And AJ looked really bad in the first Usyk fight, but I want to acknowledge that he actually looked really good in the rematch. I felt Usyk beat him clearly in the rematch as well. I think had an 8-4 or something in that range. I had Usyk beating AJ clearly, and the judges almost robbed him, but Usyk deserved the win in the rematch. But I need to mention that AJ looked really good in that second Usyk fight, and I've told people from the start that version of AJ beats almost any heavyweight. And at this point, I'd probably pick him to beat any heavyweight. So that was a really good performance from AJ, even in defeat, because he took on an Usyk that dominated him and nearly stopped him in the first fight. And in the rematch, made Usyk really have to dig deep, and he made Usyk have to give everything to AJ, because if he didn't completely dig deep and really push himself, AJ would have gotten that victory that night. So shout out to AJ for really coming to fight in the Usyk rematch. It was truly commendable in my opinion. Now when it comes to the Wilder rematch, while AJ got better in his rematch against Usyk, Fury got worse in his rematch, his third fight against Deontay Wilder. Now I understand Fury won both of these fights and AJ lost both of these fights, but Usyk is tiers above Wilder. It's not even close. But in the third Deontay Wilder fight, Tyson Fury had a really bad performance. Yes, he knocked Wilder out and he battered him, but he got dropped a couple times. He struggled, and he had Wilder out of there for a while and took him all the way to the 11th to actually get the stoppage. I felt that was actually a pretty poor performance from Tyson Fury. Maybe Wilder just had a better fight, a better game plan, but I think Fury overlooked Deontay Wilder for sure. Now, after this, AJ went on a little bit of I'm not going to say slump because it was actually in one fight, but against Jermaine Franklin, AJ looked really bad. It was a really bad outing from him. I felt he went through some mental deterioration after the two Usyk defeats. He took a large decline in performances when he took on Franklin and looked really bad. He got the job done, and maybe Franklin is just better than we credit him to be. Maybe he's just better than we credit him to be, but I'm not really sure that's the case. I just think AJ looked really bad and had a really bad performance. Franklin is better than we think he is, I feel. He arguably beat Dillian White as well, but I do think it had more to do with AJ than anything. I felt AJ just looked really gun-shy in that fight. Now, Tyson Fury, he took on Dillian White, and the same Dillian White that many people thought lost to Franklin, but on paper beat Franklin. And Tyson Fury dominated Dillian White. He knocked him out in the 6th round, made a statement, and looked very impressive. So if you're looking at side-by-side, AJ versus Franklin and Fury versus White, it's clear that there's a difference in skill as Fury dominates Dillian White and AJ goes life and death with Jermaine Franklin. However, I feel that had to do with AJ just having a really bad performance and still being very, very mentally weak after the two Usyk wins. And as we see how he looks in his next few fights, I believe that is the case, and he would have destroyed Jermaine Franklin, the version of AJ that we've seen recently. So AJ takes on Robert Helenius, and makes a statement, knocks him out in the 7th round. He didn't look too great before the knockout, but he got the job done. Tyson Fury takes on Derek Chisora and dominates him, but no one wanted to see a third Chisora fight. I think that fight was disgusting and a blemish on the sport. And after that, AJ beats Wallin, which I've broken down. And Tyson Fury, and this is where this video is really, I'm not going to say inspired, but it definitely helped my confidence in making this video. The worst performance I think I've ever seen from a pro championship boxer. He beats Francis Ngannou by split decision. Now, at the time, this looked pretty bad on Tyson Fury. Everyone was questioning how good he is. This is against an MMA fighter, ex-UFC fighter. He goes life and death. Many people feel even lost. I mean, if you check the unofficial score at BoxRec, they had Tyson Fury winning 96-93 on average, but it was a very close fight for a couple swing rounds, and he got dropped, and he looked really bad. Now this win has aged terribly. It has aged even worse. At the time, we thought it was bad that he went life and death with Ngannou. Now we know it's terrible that he went life and death with Ngannou. Anthony Joshua flatlined Francis Ngannou in 2 rounds and dropped him 3 times in that span. Anthony Joshua completely outperformed Fury, obviously, knocked him out in 2 rounds and made a statement. And I feel after this fight, I understand in the past it was pretty debatable and pretty on the fence on who would win, and I was honestly favoring Fury for the most part. But after this fight, I have no doubt in my mind Anthony Joshua would defeat Tyson Fury. And if you actually look at their resumes and you break down what they've done in their careers, Anthony Joshua has always been consistently fighting the better opposition than Tyson Fury, even in defeat against Usyk twice. If Tyson Fury fought every single fighter Anthony Joshua had, aside from Ruiz, he would have lost the same fights. Usyk would have beaten Tyson Fury twice, just like he's going to beat him in May. If Anthony Joshua fought Tyson Fury's opponents, honestly, we can argue the Wilder fights all we want, but I think AJ would probably be undefeated, just like Tyson Fury is. AJ took on the better opponents. He took on the better names. And I feel when they fight, Anthony Joshua is going to prove himself. He's going to defeat Tyson Fury when they do probably fight after Usyk beats Fury. And Anthony Joshua, in my opinion, is higher all time than Tyson Fury and would also beat him in a fight. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This video is 20 minutes long. It went way too long. Let me know your thoughts. Have a good one, guys. God bless. I'll see you guys later. Peace.